Hello everyone, we're at the starting line of Alpentour Trophy 2022 and it's going to be one of the toughest among all days. We are going to ride 66 kilometers in distance and it contains somewhat around 3000 meters of elevation. So it's going to be a long day in the saddle. As much as the stage was hard physically, it was maybe even harder now to edit it, because it was very tough decisions to be made, which parts to pick, because not only it was interesting from racing and riding experience, the scenery, at least for me who's first time in Alps during the summer, it was something unforgettable, I shall say. And even though I didn't saw some of those sceneries actually live because I was too focused under my front wheel, unfortunately under front wheel, but seeing now how amazing everything was is breathtaking to say the least. So that's just my praises to Schladming area, which are definitely worth it. And again, we are at the neutral start. I'm Tomas Bumbulevičius, aka I'm Tomas Bumbulevičius, aka Tom 10. I raced in sports group second category. It's between 30 and 40 men age years old. And you can see that we are in a traffic jam once again. I knew that it's going to be an uphill and quite steep right from the start, but as we are going in the neutral start for a few kilometers, it's going to be similar. Today I came to the start line 20 minutes before the start, and guess what? There were already all people there and I was in the back. Considering that the start was in very narrow streets and straight into uphill, it was also neutral start, but there was not too much place to do any overtakes, so there was some time lost. But tomorrow probably I would have to come 1 hour before the start if I want to, but I'm not going to do that because it's just a nonsense. You can see that those who go in a duo mixed group already carries their woman or their partner to the uphill. And one thing to mention here is that I noticed that power meter is not connected maybe 10 minutes into the race, but I then reconnected. So you can see that it's a speed up version of how that initial uphill went through. So in order you just close one gap, you have to try to close the another one. And the reason why I so much elaborate and talk about those gaps and moving as close as possible to the front before the start basically is just the nature of casual one-day race, where you just if you come to the gate late, you do everything you can to go as much as possible to the front. And because I don't have stage race experience, I just make sure to reuse that what I know from the past. And even though it doesn't necessarily work this way in stage race, in my mind I somehow still chase that thought. And I think that in some cases it really works, because you can get stuck in shorter and narrower parts of the track, and if you put that extra effort in the beginning, you just eliminate that possibility. But of course, if everyone else is stronger, they will catch you by the day ends.
From your left, right.
That was a sketch one, and as usually, I missed to properly say which side I'm coming from. But it just happens when you are too much focused with too high BPM and too much power to the pedal. So you can see that on the right of the screen there's again elevation gain and elevation lost, and by now we are almost 15 minutes into the race and we are climbing for breakfast. Who doesn't want a better breakfast than climbing in the early morning? So it's already 600 meters up, and you can see that first 5 kilometers, actually probably it's the second, yeah, it's lap 2, but this one took us 25 minutes to climb those most of the 600 meters, actually probably a bit less. And here we go, climbing yet again. Basically the whole first part of the day was 2 tops to be taken. So we went to Reiteralm, something like that. So that was the first part of the climb, and then we went downwards, and then another even steeper and longer uphill awaited for us. So whenever route starts, I am too scary, too precautious, and you can see that the guy just flies through my side, and I couldn't even see him 10 seconds afterwards. But that just probably comes from a lot of practice and lessons learned. This is one of rare cases when I overtake someone on the downhill. So that's really rare occasion, at least on the second day coming into the stage. And even further to elaborate on that, the guy which was in front, he stayed in front in a similar distance, and he didn't run away too far away, so that's good too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus, for letting me through. Which I couldn't say about his partner in duo mixed group.
From your right.
One thing to mention about today is that there is mixed duo teams where one man and one woman participates in the race as a team, and there is a team, their number is 906 and 7 if I'm not mistaken, from Germany, and the woman, she's always very intense into racing, and even though she don't able to climb, she got off the bike and she never sees and never looks behind what's happening. And what she does, she just starts climbing up on foot, taking the whole space on the single track. And it was the same story yesterday and today also. So from one point of view, it's very nice to see some enthusiastic people during the race, but at the same time it would be worth thinking about others and just pass them through if you are not able to do that thing on your own, so at least others won't suffer from your enthusiastic wish to win the race. So that was the only way to overtake 906 participants, just by going off-road and running a bit faster than she's moving. And you can see how they usually went on the uphills. So even though I overtook her there, her partner, carried her towards the most of the climbs. So good job for him. And here we are coming towards the Dead Man Land, and you will notice very soon why it's called that, or why I made that entitlement for this. It's very steep, definitely a lot more than 10%, and even further. You can see that it reached even 15%. And we are all really struggling here to keep up on the bike, especially because it's 1 hour and a half and we already have 1,200 meters of elevation gain. And keep in mind that most of it was consecutive, without close to none going downs. Well, there was few, one on that rooty grass, so you didn't actually rest there and you had to work, maybe not as hard as going up, but still it required some effort to be done. And the Dead Man's Land is because everyone is walking by now already, so the guy in front still pedals. Actually there is one guy who's still pedaling up front, but I wonder, now he's already off the bike. So I managed to not to stop here, and we will see if I manage to finish off this Dead Man Land. Nope, it was the same for me as well. Basically, maybe on the right there is a better traction, it would be possible to do that, but here at the loose gravel, loose stones, not really.
Well done.
Yeah, so here another one awaited, but it was a bit less steep and a bit shorter in distance. So you have seen that I reached my max power output during the day on a 1 second time basis. And also, if you haven't seen yet, you can rewind it back and take a notice that the degrees of this climb was more than 20%, 20 grades at some point. And you can see that we are very, very close to finish this first climb of the day. And here is me crawling like a turtle to the top of the mountain, but it wasn't that easy at all. Of course, this gravel road was sweet compared to what was before. And maybe it's not a good practice to go on the bike to the food station, but since there were not too much people around, I usually, when this happens, didn't went off the bike.
That point, downhill.
So here's my girlfriend managed to record some of the shots, not from my chesty, so thanks for her for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was flying on the beginning of that bridge.
Thank you.
But photographer managed to take only the second part, and thanks for him for doing so. And here I was so happy that the downhill began that I almost went to the trees.
Whoops.
But basically it was just a loose gravel, and I was I missed the point where I should have turned, and then I almost went through. But anyways, seeing this shot now, I can see how beautiful it was, and Unfortunately, there are not enough time, at least for me, going down to take a look at the viewings around, but that's a good thing that I recorded all the races and now I can just rewind it, watch it forth and back, and just share also everything with others who either was full with sweat in their eyes and was not able to see that, or haven't even participated. You can see that here Kimmo 272 went through me like just an easy game. So Kimmo was very fast on the downhills, and he's from Finland, so I wonder where he earned that downhill skills. Of course there are mountains there, but yeah, Kimmo, if you are watching this by an accident, let us know where you learned that. And it looks like going 50 kilometers per hour is not a big deal. You're on a mountain bike, you have flat tires, you have white tires, and you have a lot of traction. But at the same point, every single time you coast down 50-60 kilometers per hour, there is a 180 degrees turn, so you have to find a way to stop it and do it efficiently as well. And you can see that 5 kilometers downhill took us, for me, it took almost 8 minutes, so the average speed was 38. Not so bad.
Slowly, I'm so lonely. I have nobody on my own.
Yeah, so there was no guys up front, no guys back of me. But then eventually I noticed two guys somewhere appeared in the horizon, and I did my best to catch them because I knew that we are going a bit of a flatland for upcoming few kilometers, and going in a group it's definitely a better idea than struggling alone. And those guys were quite collaborative. They exchange, basically they are from the same team, they are going into a distance, and they changed quite often, and it was nice to share the course with them as well, at least for some time. So basically during the race I always offer my help as well if I feel that I can, so I just offered them to jump on my wheel, that I won't be the one who only uses something and doesn't give it back. So that's the attitude I always share during the race, and I love that collaborative feeling when others shares the same as well. So that's also a good thing about cycling, that no matter where you're from what country, what are your skills, etc., if you find yeah, just a moment.
You are amazing.
Yeah, so if you find someone who's rides a similar speed as you do, it's great that no words needed.
Man, you were flying on downhill. Jesus Christ, crazy. Yeah.
Here's a Kimmo.
Uphills are hard for everyone. Downhills for only few.
Much difference for me
Yeah.
in the uphill and downhill performance. But it is what it is.
Yeah. What goes up must come down.
Yeah, my most famous and most used phrase, what goes up must come down. Definitely it's not figured out by me. And one thing to mention, for what I said you are amazing, there was a girl from Poland. She was in the lead distance, if I'm not mistaken. She was in a lead group of women, if I'm not mistaken. And she was already behind by quite a huge distance, and on the uphill she managed to catch us all, and
Let's go together.
I just praise her because it was really nice of her.
Easier to said than done.
Yeah, so this was one of the toughest climbs probably through all 4 stages, and what didn't help as well is that there was a headwind straight into the face, just in this valley, so it didn't help to climb those 10 plus grades of gravel road. And you can see that last 5 kilometers it took me almost 40 minutes. Alright, so I was in the food station, but it was 7.5 average speed, so it's whopping small. And you also can see
It's the last one, guys, come on!
that this was the first time I went off a bike on this climb, and it happened because I encouraged others to go and then just didn't focus much. But you can see that we already are 2,200 meters of elevation gain and only 1,000 left, or 1,000 down, so that means we are climbing towards some point which will lead us down for a long distance. So that means we have to suffer just a little bit more, and then maybe the easier part awaits, or maybe not, who knows.
Hey, nice spot!
So there was a photographer in the water up to his knees, and I'm not sure what he was trying to portray there, but yeah, I guess that water is really cold, because you can see that there are even some snow on the mountains. And the views here, you can write in the comments what do you think about the views on this top.
That was...
And it's amazing that in the on top of a mountain you have such valley with all those tracks that just... I could actually just sit here, say nothing, and it will be maybe even better than me talking, but sharing something from what I remember or what I noticed when racing here is also notable. So up front are the same 2 guys which we rode on the gravel road before, and also Pavel from Czech Republic.
Yeah, unless you want to try it. Yeah.
Yeah, I offered
Better safe and sorry.
the guy to, maybe he wants to try that splash of water between the rocks, but he refused to, and he went off a bike as well.
Yeah, go on.
As usual, I allow others in front if I feel that I'm not capable going in the same speed, and here the cramp started on my leg and I just decided to walk for a while because it was unbearable to ride. Unfortunately, today there was no easy place for me, because uphills were either very steep or just long enough to get tired, or otherwise there was a downhills which technically are very good to keep up your powers and refresh yourself, but at the same time they were quite technical, and what I gained during the climbs I kind of lost even more during descent. So things happens, and shout out to all the guys who have big balls or zero of fear, so that's good for them. Yeah, what I also said in the past is that if I feel that I'm too slow and there are faster guys behind me, I don't mind to allow them to go in front, because why to, even though we are racing here and we are somewhat trying to get better position, etc., but in the end there's also just common sense which tells, at least for me, that you shouldn't try to make others uncomfortable. If your skill set and your actual situation at that moment is a lot slower than it would allow others to go. And those rocks, it's definitely not my thing also, even though I am on full suspension bike.
Go on.
It's just tough for me to ride these technical sections. And steepness here is, I assume it's a lot more than it's showing here at the current time. And I also thought that I might try going down here, but once I noticed the guy up front coming off a bike, I just stopped too much myself, and then alright, I decided that I will go on the foot. And also that stiffness on the legs when you are not confident when going down. I noticed that it causes cramps during the day, and keep in mind it's almost 3.5 hours we are on the course, so it's something. Probably this was one of the very few overtakes I done on the downhill. Oops, spoiling a bit. But yeah, this guy was a bit suffering a bit even more than I do, and he was on a hardtail, so it's definitely not hard to understand why.
From the left.
The camera doesn't portray the actual bumpiness of the road, because it's all stones in the ground, so it's just constant vibrations over the whole bike.
Go on.
And here was the situation. I let the guy in front and decided that I will try to follow his pace. And it wasn't too bad actually. I was going close to similar what he was going through, but
Whew.
I decided not to chase my luck and let him go.
Go at your own pace.
Yeah, a bit of talking with myself, just because I noticed that I'm carrying speed too much, and at some point I might be not able to do something towards my favor with that speed. So basically I'm sharing all those here is because the scenery was unmatched and very beautiful looking from the camera. As much as it was beautiful, it was also similarly beautiful and hard. So all those rocks and stones and trees and roots, you name it. But of course I definitely understand that it's not the hardest to say the least. It's not the hardest descents, and they are actually a joke for someone who's been in real trails and mountains. But keep in mind that I'm racing MTB for second year, and I never been in these type of mountains myself, so it's all new, it's all brand new experiences, and yeah, that's just an excuse to say for reason why I go that slow. I'm not going to pretend that I will be a lot faster in the future. It's just probably...
What happened, man? All good?
It's just my nature of trying to protect myself and think about the consequences it might get. But at the same point, I love that status quo between what my mind understands and what my body wants. So in front you can see Lukasš 203, which one day before allowed me... Yeah, so one guy is changing the tube. So he gave me the water when I asked, and even though he is running away here from me, and he was actually faster throughout all days, shout out Lukasš. So even though he was faster, I just decided to finish the gel and try to catch him back to thank for yesterday, because I even...
Thanks for the water yesterday, man. You actually saved my life.
I didn't have a chance yesterday, so I decided that because I had quite a lot of energy left by this point still, I decided that yeah, that's a good time to farewell and say thanks. What's different from the past day here is that I felt really great. If yesterday 3 hours and 30 minutes I was hoping to survive, here I had quite a lot of power in my legs, and I could try to get something more from it, but at the same time knowing that too few more days awaits, I decided to conserve that energy for the future. So even though we were quite close here, more than 7 kilometers remaining towards the end of the race, Lukasš managed to get faster in front, like a few minutes ahead of me. And this is the famous grass, just from a different point of the course track, and it was similarly hot as yesterday, but because it was a better situation of my stamina, it was just easier to do that.
Hey. That's good.
Because my heart rate during the whole stage remained in the third or a bit of a fourth zone, comparing to what yesterday was fourth zone almost every time, the whole time. Today the downhill of the last section was a lot easier to do because I had more powers and more stamina left, so I wasn't so stiff as usually, and finish was good. So the last shake of the hands before the finish downhill, and off we go. Actually, on the second day I felt on this downhill the best, because on the third day we were a bit more of a downhill even before the section, so I got exhausted already by the time I entered the section. But yeah, on this day it was comfy and nice experience. And you can see how far away city is when we look at the distance, but then you are going 10 to 20% of grade, even more. Actually, at least Strava shows that the last section of this trail is minus 29 degrees of grade. So you can do the math. It's really steep down, but of course it shows the steepness probably straight down by the elevation, so it might be a bit less, but just still enough to be said. But it's a good feeling when you start feeling the bike a bit better and you are not that stiff. Even if you hear those brakes squeezing, I felt really better on that day. But no jump through the finish line. And here you can see the results I gathered. So basically it's an overall result on the stage. I finished at 20th position, and that put me into 21st overall among the second sports group.
Kyndl. Kyndl.
Tomorrow going to be one of the easiest days, if I could say that, because there are relatively easy climb in the beginning of the course, then there's a whole section of downhill, and then there will be quite simple paved road uphill, which later on will turn into grass section and also going to be uphill. It's only 56 kilometers, and comparing to what was in the first and second day, it's very easy. But at the same time, considering we already run 2 days in a row, I guess it's just an illusion and it won't be that easy. So for tomorrow, I wish myself to conserve energy and make sure to finish that finish line as in stage 2 rather than stage 1, so not totally exhausted, because there are 4 stages in total. So here you can see how Lukasš explains what happened to his face. So basically he went his front wheel hit the rock and he went over the bars straight into the spa section. So thanks for the time, and we will meet on the stage 3.